When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. This is something Wayne Dyer used to say in quite a few of his different lectures that I've listened to over the years. And I heard it, but I never really heard it. So it's kind of like coming back to me in kind of how he said it. So the way you look at, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I was reading this, I got this little booklet the other day. It's another one of these Charles Capp thing, calling things that are not. And I start reading this old verse parable from this book. So God also spoke to Zacharias, but the reaction was not the same as was with Abraham. The angel said unto him, Fear not, Zacharias, for the prayer is heard, and thy wife Elizabeth will bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name John. And Zacharias said unto the angel, Whereby shall I know this? For I am an old man, and my wife well stricken in years. And the angel answering him said unto him, I am Gabriel, that stand in the presence of God, and I am sent to speak unto thee, and to shew thee these glad tidings. And behold, thou shalt be dumb and not speak until the day that these things shall be performed, because thou believest not my words, which shall be fulfilled in their season. So I always just thought this is like kind of a weird parable, and that's kind of how it's taught if you go to Catholic school. But this really applies to something that I talked about in my video, I think it was yesterday or the day before that, about once you believe something, you actually get that and you put that into motion. Now, a lot of people who don't believe in this were coming into the comments section and attacking me or saying this is woo-woo, or I believe in the science, even though the science is wrong or paid off or whatever so often. It's crazy to me how people can look at how often science has no bearing in reality whatsoever, and they follow it. I mean, look at 2020. Look at some of these other things. Look at DDT. Look at, just everything that has been performed on us basically over these last decades, and tell me how often science has any basis in anything other than making money for a company that doesn't care about you. So, now off that tangent, let's really look at what's being said here. He actually made him so dumb and unable to speak, because he was going to speak into reality, the reality that his wife was too late in years to actually bear children, and that he himself was too late in years to bear children. So, when you really look at this and you really read this, it's like he didn't want him to speak a different truth into reality, because God, whatever God is, whatever the source is, whatever the universe or the earth or whatever you want to call it is, knows that when you speak something into reality, it's going to happen eventually if you keep saying the same thing. So like, if you relate it to the main topics on my channel about diet, about even me talking about like how overweight and everything I am, you get that back. You perform that action. You talk about, like, you could see it actually in some of my videos about how I talk about I don't want to exercise, I don't want to do this, don't want to do that. It's because of some of the words and phrases that I've put out there over the years. Now, I know this is, I guess the new word is esoteric or whatever, but like, I know this is a little out there. But the reality is it's true. You get back what you're talking about. Now, one thing that isn't quite clear in my readings and everything of the Bible is, does thinking really matter as much as speaking into reality? I don't really know. They say that, you might have doubts and everything in your mind, but what you speak is actually what actually comes to fruition. That part I'm kind of looking into. But if you are somebody who's always talking about the negative, or just like my father, for example, he doesn't really speak about the negative, but he has the most negative jokes. He's such a kind person. Like, he will help anybody. But some of his jokes, I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy lives in this like weird reality here. And I'm like, this is where I get it from. I remember one time I went to an interview. It was for temp agency. And I'm interviewing with this lady, and at the end of the interview, she's like, you sound positive, but you're like the most negative person I've ever interviewed. And I'm like, how does that work? Like, how does that work? And another time I was at a family event. It was just my father and I. And I noticed that his own family, who are all very well off, very just do their own thing, just very well off, they all kind of avoid him after the first initial contact. Like, he'll say hello, or they'll say hello. And then he starts talking, and they're like, oh, okay. Oh, there's a shrimp over there. I'm gonna go try that. And it's like, I was like, what happens? Like, what is it? But I guess it's because I grew up with this that I don't notice it. But this last, that was probably 2022, I think it was, or 2021, that this happened. And I for the first time I ever actually saw this happen. And on the way home, because this was up in Detroit, on the way home, I asked him, has this always happened to you? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I'm like a people herder. Like, I come in and they go away. And I'm like, this really doesn't happen to me that I've noticed, other than with my family. So maybe it's just the family, because most of the time people like gather around me and I'm, I can't handle this, like a cat, like I can't handle it. But with so maybe it's just a family thing, I don't know. But I have noticed with certain people. And you ever notice people who are at your, like if you go to a regular traditional job and there's always this energy vampire, and it's this negative thing after negative thing after negative thing. And these people, I used to tell them, now I did turn into this at the post office because of how much pain I was in. But these people are like energy vampires. It's crazy to me how bad they are with this. So if you're that person, if you're the person that people are scurrying from, really analyze this, because if you're always speaking negative, people they kind of push that away. Even if they're not that positive themselves, they'll recognize that you're very negative or whatever. Now, it can be funny too. So like, there's that aspect of it. Like you might be the comedian of the the workplace, and people gather around for that, and I've played that role. But if you're always like that, maybe really analyze that, see where you're coming from, and see if it's really you, or if you're just using these things because you think it's funny. But the more of this you speak into reality, the more it just keeps coming back to you. Like if we're going to use work, for example, like, oh, I didn't get the promotion, or before you even get to the meeting for the promotion, well, I know I didn't get it last year. I'm not going to get it this year. There's no way I'm going to get this, but I'll go for the interview. I'll entertain myself anyways, blah, 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 blah. And of course you get exactly what you just said, and you come out and of course I didn't get it. It went to blah, 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 whatever. But if you're always thinking this way, and we're all guilty of it at some level, really start thinking, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Like, remember that Wayne Dyer quote, or me saying it from Wayne Dyer. I don't want to take credit for it, and who knows, it might not even be his. Because I've noticed over the years, after I've listened to some other like motivational people, like Napoleon Hill and stuff like that, that Wayne Dyer did kind of yank some of his phrases and stuff. So who knows where he got it from, but I'm getting it from him. I'm giving it to you. You can use it however you want to, but when you really change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Just remember this. What is this? Luke 1:13, 18-20. I don't know if you can see that. So I'll look that up and really reread this for the first time. Like, don't have the religion side of you reading this. Have the analytical side of you actually reading this. If you have the analytical side of you reading the Bible, it's crazy what it's telling you. And most people just like, oh, that's just a parable, blah, 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 whatever. But it's not. It's actually telling you something. It's telling you what you shouldn't be doing. And you really should listen to it, because you can see that he performed all these miracles, and he told us that we can do the same or even greater than he did. think that's really all I have to say about that. But I mean, this again is another good one. Calling things that are not. Basically, it talks about how God, came to this barren, whatever the earth was before he got here, and started speaking light and water and land and animals and everything into existence. But they didn't exist prior to that. He spoke them into existence. So you speak everything into existence that you have. So if your world is always what you don't want it to be, look at what you're talking about and how you're thinking and how you're saying things, and start changing them. Even if you change them very slightly, like work at something small in the beginning, like your diet, and just keep going from there. And anyway, that is the video. Really think about what you're saying. You can really see this in the comments, especially when I did that video about the Joe Rogan, the sugar thing. Those comments, I actually deleted, like I said, like 150 of them or so. It was a lot of comments I had to delete because it was just so ridiculous. Like I'm like, these comments have they serve nothing. Anyways, really think about what you're talking about. This can relate to diet. This can relate to money. This can relate to relationships. It can relate to business. It can relate to anything in your life. And think about what you're actually putting out there, how you're putting it out there, and maybe things will start changing around for you if they're not exactly where you need to be. And that's it. Anyway, comments, questions down below. Like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you in the next one.